February 2, 1959, a rescue team reaches the eastern slopes of Dead Mountain in the Soviet Ural range. They find a tent ripped open from the inside. 9 experienced hikers gone. Their shoes still inside the tent in minus 30 degrees Celsius. What happened that night has never been fully explained, and the Soviet government made sure it stayed that way. January 1959, 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on a Category 3 hike, the hardest certification in the Soviet system. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, brilliant. He'd built his own radio equipment from scratch. This was supposed to be his greatest expedition. The group included Zinaida Kolmogorova, described as the most popular girl at the university, Yuri Doroshenko, athletic, fearless, Semyon Zolotaryov, a war veteran, the oldest at 37, joining last minute. They were not amateurs. They were the best. One team member, Yuri Yudin, turned back on January 28th due to illness. He would be the only one to survive. For the rest of his life, he said he never forgave himself for leaving. From their diaries, which we still have, the mood was cheerful. They joked, sang songs, and wrote a satirical newspaper called The Evening Otterten, named after the mountain they planned to summit. January 31st, they reached the tree line and began ascending Kholat Syakhl, which translates from the indigenous Mansi language as Dead Mountain. February 1st, bad weather forced them off course. Dyatlov made a decision: camp on the exposed mountain slope instead of retreating to the forest. Experienced hikers sometimes do this to save time. At 5 p.m., they pitched their tent halfway up the slope, ate dinner, set up their gear. Those are the last verified facts before everything went wrong. By February 20th, families were alarmed. Dyatlov had promised a telegram by the 12th. Silence. A search party found the tent on February 26th. What they saw didn't make sense. The tent was intact, but cut open from the inside with a knife. Equipment was still inside. Food, shoes, coats, cameras. 9 sets of footprints led away from the tent, down toward the tree line, 1.5 kilometers away. Some prints showed people walking without shoes, in the snow, at night. Whatever they ran from, they ran in socks. The searchers followed the tracks. Under a large cedar tree, 1.5 kilometers from the tent, they found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonyshenko. They were in their underwear. Their hands were burned, as if they'd been desperately trying to climb the tree and start a fire. 3 more bodies were found between the tree and the tent, as if they had been trying to return. Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, Slobodin. Their arms were outstretched, clawing at the snow, pointing back toward the tent. The cause of death for all 5, hypothermia. Tragic, but explainable, if this were the full story. It wasn't. In May, when the snow melted, 4 more bodies were found buried in a ravine 75 meters from the cedar tree. This is where the case becomes truly disturbing. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, his skull was crushed, not from a fall, crushed with a force that investigators compared to a car crash. Lyudmila Dubinova, her tongue was missing, completely removed, her eyes gone. Her chest was caved in, ribs fractured on both sides. The medical examiner said the force required was equivalent to a vehicle impact at high speed. Semyon Zolotaryov, same chest trauma. And here's what made Soviet investigators go pale. There were no external wounds, no bruising on the skin. The damage was entirely internal, as if caused by an extreme pressure wave, not a physical blow. One more detail. Dubinova was wearing pieces of clothing that belonged to Krivonyshenko, one of the first group found. His clothes had been cut off a corpse and put on her. The Soviet government classified the investigation immediately. The files were sealed until 1990. When they were finally opened, investigators found one more thing that had been buried in the official report. 2 of the victims tested positive for elevated radiation levels, specifically on their clothing. The official conclusion? An unknown compelling force. That's it. That is the Soviet government's official explanation for 9 dead experienced hikers with crushed skulls missing organs, and radiation on their clothes. An unknown compelling force. The case was closed. The families were told nothing. The mountain was sealed to hikers for 3 years, which means someone in the Soviet government knew something and decided the public didn't need to. Over 60 years, dozens of theories have emerged. Let's go through the most credible ones. Theory 1, avalanche. The official 2019 Russian reinvestigation concluded it was a snow slab avalanche. But here's the problem. The slope's angle was too gentle for a classic avalanche. The tent was found intact, and avalanche victims don't walk 1.5 kilometers before dying. Theory 2, infrasound. Low-frequency sound waves can cause panic, hallucinations, and the feeling that something is watching you. Certain wind conditions in mountain passes can generate infrasound. Could it have driven the group into mass panic? Theory 3, secret Soviet weapons testing. The Ural region was home to classified military projects, the radiation, the internal injuries, the cover-up. This theory won't go away. Theory 4, katabatic winds. Sudden violent downdrafts capable of hurricane force could have caused injuries and hypothermia simultaneously without touching the tent. Theory 5, the one that keeps researchers up at night. The Mansi indigenous people had stories about this mountain. Dead Mountain was not a name given by outsiders. They had been warning people about this place for generations. No theory explains all the evidence. Every single one has holes. On the night of February 1st to 2nd, multiple groups in the region, including another hiking group and military meteorological observers, reported seeing glowing orange spheres moving across the sky above the Dyatlov Pass area. This wasn't one witness, this wasn't hearsay. These were filed reports from separate official Soviet sources, reports that were also quietly buried. What were those lights? Nobody has ever answered that question. Yuri Yudin, the one who turned back sick, spent the rest of his life trying to find answers. He attended every reinvestigation, kept every piece of evidence, corresponded with researchers worldwide. In 2013, he died without ever knowing what happened to his friends. His last public statement, "I don't want a government explanation, I want the truth." He never got it. Here's what we know for certain. 9 experienced people fled their tent in the middle of the night, in 30 below zero temperatures, without shoes, without explanation, and died in ways that still cannot be fully accounted for. The evidence has never been destroyed. The photos are real. The diaries are real. The autopsy reports are real. 65 years later, on the same slope, the same mountain still stands, and nobody knows what happened there. If you think you have the answer, leave it in the comments, because in 6 decades of investigation, no one else has found one. Subscribe if you want more stories that the history books left out. The next one is even more disturbing.